Can you still hear me, Shaylee?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Made an adjustment. I was just wondering if you could still hear me. There's a thunderstorm blowing in, guys.
I can hear it actually from where I'm sitting, so that's crazy.
Maybe you better go inside.
I ain't scared.
Bring it on.
Till that lightning bolt hits you or a tree branch comes down and nails you in the noggin.
I'd hate to hurt the tree branch.
I'll call the paramedics if you need them, Rob.
It was a good thing I called Rick. He had forgotten. He didn't realize what time it was, so he'll be on shortly.
Okay, should we go ahead and get started with the word group then?
Sure.
Yeah, you could.
Okay. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Riverdale City Planning Commission Work Group for Tuesday, July 28th, 2020. I'd like to show all the commissioners are here with the exception of Commissioner Herman, Commissioner Spires, and Commissioner Anderson, who are excused. Commissioner Herman is on his way. Presentations and reports, Mr. Eggett.
Thank you. Well, the big one is tonight, obviously, you have a rezone application before you for a multifamily request. Should the rezone be favorably accepted both by the Planning Commission as a recommendation to City Council and approved by City Council, you can anticipate what will be forthcoming. So, in the form of a site plan and a subdivision potential request, depending on how that looks. I think it's just going to be a site plan. Additionally, there's a potential site plan amendment forthcoming on the Green Hill Apartments. So that will probably be coming your direction. The Starbucks facility on the corner of 300 and Riverdale Road is moving forward. They've got contractors inside working on that. The Scandinavian Designs building, still moving forward very slowly, but it is moving forward. The Riverdale Business Park Phase 2 has completed foundations and footings. That's up there by Bravo Arts Academy. That will be coming out of the ground here very soon. And the building next to Buffalo Wild Wings that has the Zeppies in it, that's about to come out of the ground as well. That's got all the in-ground stuff completed. So those are some of the big projects. Otherwise, Falcon Hill continues to move forward up there by the museum. They've got their big building almost completed, and they're looking at a future phase 2 and 3. It really doesn't affect the city because it's a state board that oversees that, but it is in city limits, so it affects us in that perspective. And then obviously the 5600 South interchange in Roy, Riverdale area, that public hearing period has closed, or public comment period has closed, and now they'll evaluate public comments, and based upon that start to make decisions relative to financial set-asides for that project to move forward sometime in the near future. So as I hear more happening with that project, I'll let you know, but that's where it's at. They may refine it. I know there's some concerns from Falcon Hill about how Falcon Hill has access to coming off of that interchange and how it circulates. So that may have some bearing on, you may in fact even see a revised 5600 South plan as a result of Falcon Hill's concerns, the Falcon Hill team, and the base's concerns with that, but I'll let you know if that changes at all. Other than that, we've got other things coming, but I'm not in a position I can say much more. I guess the other thing I will note, I talked to Dee Hansen today, and there's another site plan, phase 2 subdivision plan forthcoming sometime, probably at this point, September, October time period. I'll bring to this group when that time's ready. So that's the report. There are things happening.
Nice. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Eggett. Consent items. Do any commissioners have any change from the meeting minutes from July 14th? And action items. Tonight we're having a couple public hearings. The first one is to receive and consider comments regarding a rezone request for properties located approximately 4100 South Pacific Avenue in Riverdale. They're changing from regional plan commercial CP3 to multifamily residential R4. Mr. Egg.
Thank you. As you look in your packet to guide you on this, there's a lot of documentation which typically we have for public hearings and rezone requests. The application tonight is Riverdale North, Center North, in assistance with AWA Engineering Group, and they're represented by Jake Tate. They're the petitioner in the matter. As you noted, the rezone is located approximately 4100 South Pacific Avenue. That's located there behind Bed Bath & Beyond on the corner as you come around 300, as you remember in our last meeting, and the request is from CP3 to R4. Their plan is for multifamily residential, which is apartment type uses or high density type uses, and you can let the applicant talk to that more if you'd like. The neighboring properties around the area are zone C3, M1, and RCP zoning around it. And the request is approximately 2.59 acres of land. And we have fulfilled all requirements of state code and city code to allow for public commentary and public hearing for the scheduled public hearing tonight. We did not receive any feedback from anybody prior to the meeting as far as any expectations of anybody participating or having concerns. So see who maybe comments on it aside from the applicant. The current ownership is listed under the county records of Riverdale Center North LLC, and the property is currently a vacant field. Was historically designed to be a commercial retail pad behind Bed Bath & Beyond years ago when Boyer first developed the project area, but it never happened, as you can tell. Let's see. The general plan for the area is established as a planned commercial high. The proposed rezone request and project concept could be a benefit in strengthening established commercial areas' potential support, supporting new commercial uses within the land use designation area. This kind of is in alignment with the application you received from Jake Tate, and his explanation as to why he thinks this zoning is appropriate and adequate for this project area. One thing I brought up too that I think is of interest to the Planning Commission to put on the record from our general plan is a statement wherein it says, this is an area 9, which is reflective of the area we're talking about, bounded all the way down to where the classic water slides are and north up to the boundary with Ogden. And a paragraph in this area 9 says, a great planned use for this area is planned commercial high, as is reflected by recently developed commercial retail centers in this area. The high traffic through the area and the addition of the traffic signal at 550 West have accommodated new retail destination commercial growth in this area. This area is also part of the 550 West RDA and the Riverdale Road RDA. A small portion of the 550 West RDA area may accommodate new opportunities for additional housing development in the future of this RDA area. Additionally, other housing development opportunities may be available along the northwest end of 300 West, just south of the Newgate Mall parking lot. And then it goes on a little bit more after that. The reason I bring that up, obviously, is we've indicated in previous reviews of our general plan, even as recent as this would have been November 19th is when this one was completed, understanding that there might be a request for high density or an additional form of multifamily housing somewhere in Area 9. Now, this isn't exactly the place identified in the plan, where we said it was going to be closer to the mall, but it's really not that far off. You're talking, maybe 1,000 feet or so, maybe a quarter of a mile down the street from that location for the same kind of a request. So the reason I bring it up is obviously having a crystal ball, we kind of saw and expected that a request like this might come forward. We just might not have pegged the exact location. So that is kind of interesting. But what I'm trying to get at is the general plan as far as guidance for a rezone seems to, based on that statement and what we've agreed is acceptable and really close proximity, said, yeah, we recognize that this could come in that area somewhere, even though where we said is in exactly the same place. So I just want to bring that to light for the discussion. Otherwise, as you continue on in the packet for the item, you can see I've prepared the rezone map reflective of the area being rezoned. In this case, this is the area in pink, where I've identified it in that CP3 area with a little note under it explaining the request to change. And then you'll see the applicant's application, their supporting explanation of the reasoning, and it's quite lengthy explanation. It's one of the more involved explanations I've seen, 3.5 pages or so, of why they think this is appropriate, the plat location, the legal description, and then the receipt And then you can see that I've attached to that the checklist showing all of our public hearing notice requirements and how they've been all fulfilled as part of this. Hopefully, if you drove in that area in the last week or two, you've seen our signs. Hopefully no one's taken them. I would hope they're still there. Sometimes people like to take trophies and steal our signs, but hopefully they're still where they're supposed to be. And if you'll look in your packet, you'll see evidence of that placement a little bit further down, as well as the letters that were sent to the appropriate entities. Mr. Koger, our code enforcement officer slash fire inspector, put that sign in place, and that's shown in your packet, and you can see its relative location there along 300 West to show that it was in fact placed. And then you'll see the public hearing notice that was in the paper and posted in the building. So hopefully we provide you with all the evidence you need to show that this has been all established by code for the public hearing. And I know it's a lot of information, but it's going to be real similar for the second item. So I might just say ditto for the most part on the second item, but I would defer back to the planning commissioners if any of you have questions for me.
All right, Mr. Eggett, thank you very much. The second action item is, you essentially addressed it already. The exception is the address is 4113 South Pacific Avenue in Riverdale, and they're going from RCP to R4, Mr. Eggett.
And Rob, can I back up? Did any commissioners have any questions about the last item?
Sorry about that.
It's okay. Okay. That being said,
Hey, Mike. Really, this is all just preliminary, right? Nothing is actually planned. This is just preliminary to the possibility of something being planned in the future. Is that correct?
well, what it means is you're establishing land use policy. So what you're saying is this property in particular will no longer be a commercial developable property. If this gets recommended to City Council to be rezoned to residential and the City Council approves it, that property back up for 4100, that lot will now be designated for residential development in the future. It will not be a commercial lot in the future with this rezone. So in essence, is there a project? No. But you are establishing a new land use policy for what that potential could become for that property in the future. Does that make sense?
Hey, somebody's got their mic on and I can't hear half of what you're saying.
So does that make sense, Rick, that it's we're setting the stage for a change in land use policy to what it could be with the future application for actual development?
Right. But if somebody, let's say, for example, that we determine that we to go ahead and it goes through the city council and it gets approved as the rezone. If nobody acts and somebody comes along and wants to make that commercial, it could be rezoned back to commercial. Is that correct?
Yeah, they can do the reverse rezone request and return it, or pursue even a different commercial land use designation with a rezone.
Sure. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So I'll move on then with item 2B. Again, as indicated before, a lot of the storyline is simpler. I'll just hit on a few of the nuances that are different. Same applicants as the last one is 4100. This is 4113 South Pacific Avenue. The established current zone is Retail Commercial Park Overlay Zone. Retail Commercial Park Overlay is a unique zone in that it's a zoning designation that's established by a development agreement between the city and a commercial developer. So in this case, this was originally submitted as part of what was called Riverdale Center 2. Riverdale Center 2 is an old Boyer project that came in with the RDA and the old RDA. When I say old one, well, now that I say that, it may not have been part of the Riverdale Road RDA even, but it would have been around that time. 1999, I think, is when that one came in. Anyway, that development agreement would have just designated what the expectation was for the center and how the land uses went in, the signage, the shared understanding of both the city and the developer on what it would do and what it would become. This specific parcel, that's about 2.715 acres, was originally designed to be a commercial retail pad there next to the chiropractic home residential building where the chiropractor is doing work. But again, they never built a pad there in the Lowe's parking lot. It never went anywhere. And then the other use obviously was the regional detention basin, which is in place. The lack of interest in developing anything there is the reason that this developer is looking at, well, what could we do there? And they believe that even though it's in a previously developed agreement area, it's never going to meet that expectation of the original requirements of that plan. So what we would be doing when we're rezoning it, even though the development agreement had it in there, we're basically ostracizing it to some extent in a way from the previous plan by rezoning it. I looked through the rezone, I looked through the agreement. I don't see anything in the agreement. If the applicant wants to rezone it, it would be in conflict with the previous development agreement, RCP. I'll be honest, I haven't talked to Mr. Brooks about it because I haven't really seen it being a conflict. However, I could explore that more and see if there would be an issue that he would foresee, but where it's not going to, at least at current time, be developed for commercial, a request to R4 may not be out of line, especially if it then adds to the commercial components that were developed and already in place and strengthens those. Now, the one big concern, which I alluded to last week with this property, is the detention basin area. Now it's not really applicable to a rezone request, but it does beg the question, what and how? It's currently a detention basin. So how would they build multifamily on top of it? I don't know. I don't know that we have the discretion to really get into that too much at this point, but I'm sure you'll have the same question that I do as you at least consider the request here. So bottom line is, are we comfortable with this being looked at no longer as commercial property, but a multifamily R4 property? That's really what it boils down to in simplest forms. And if we are, then we have to indicate as much, and then they can do the legwork to prove how they could develop it as such in a future phase of the project process. So hopefully that's clear. I've kind of gone back and forth with it as I've looked at what they're trying to do on this one, but it doesn't seem to be in any conflict of any kind with the development agreement. And the other thing is the development agreement, ironically, technically, the development agreement for this area is long expired. But it's funny because the zoning is tied to the original development agreement that was in place. So to that aspect, if the development agreement is expired, but we're still trying to abide by the terms of it per zoning, you ostracize a parcel off of it, I don't see why you couldn't, especially where it has nothing that's in conflict with the previous development agreement that technically is expired. So it's just something else to think about. And I think that's all I really feel like saying on that, unless there's additional questions or ideas that I've spawned that you want to explore a little further.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eggett. Discretionary items. Do any commissioners have any discretionary items? Then I guess we adjourn to the virtual downstairs.
Yep. I guess we'll see you guys in about 7 or 8 minutes.
Sounds good.
Shaylee, can you hear me? I'm just curious, when I tried to get onto the meeting today, I had to download a Cisco WebEx. Are we using a different system this time?
So it's the same one that we've always been using.
Okay.
It may have just made it so they've actually been stricter with it. So I actually have to subscribe in order for us to have it downloaded in 15 minutes because they are
Okay.
having overwhelming amount of people using their system. So I guarantee what happened is they started to make you actually start downloading your app so they can keep track of who's using it. I guarantee that's probably what happened. So
Okay. Just curious. And I noticed that, is it just me or is Mike breaking up when he's talking?
the reason why is so it's not so if your mic's on while I'm talking, or like if Rob's talking and mine's on, we're gonna get feedback. It's just if there's two mics on at the same time.
Okay. All right.
With your mic on, I can't hear half of what Shaylee's saying.
There we go. See, now he can hear me. So anytime like you ask a question, just make sure you mute your microphone, and yeah, vice versa. So even when I take roll call, I'm gonna unmute mine, and then if you guys hear anything, just make sure everybody's mic is muted while I'm doing roll call. But other than that, it's really touchy.
Hey, one other thing I'm not sure is anybody has thought about as a planning commission sending some flowers to Amy. Does anybody want to do that?
I think that would be awesome. So I'm game if anybody wants to do it also.
I was looking at something when you guys asked about flowers, but I would be willing to participate as well. I would just need to either know how to transfer money or who to give cash to. So let me know.
Shaylee, would you be willing to be the person to take the money and get the flowers?
Absolutely. I love planning stuff like that, so that would be perfect. I can go get a card and I can make it so if you guys want to come in, like when you're able to, we can sign them and then just send it to her or whatever. So yeah, just let me know.
Okay, I'll bring in some money tomorrow. You'll be in the office tomorrow?
Yes, and if you catch me when I'm not here, just if you have an envelope, just put it in an envelope and put it on my desk because I'm the only one over there, so it's all good.
Thank you, Shaylee.
Miss the, whatever you were saying about flowers, what's the skinny?
So what we're gonna do is, if you would like to participate, I'm gonna get a card, and what we'll do is I'll take all the money and we'll go buy flowers and I will bring them to Amy. If you would like to, you can bring it to me, or I have Venmo, I can do whatever, but we can buy flowers for her and I'll bring them to her.
Who are the flowers for?
For Amy.
Is everybody here?
I believe
That was your-
so. Yeah, I think so.
You ready, Shaylee? Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Riverdale City Planning Commission for Tuesday, July 28th. I'd like to show all the commissioners are present with the exception of Commissioner Spears and Commissioner Anderson, who are excused. Public comment, if there's anybody from the public here, now's the time. Is there anybody from the public here, Shaylee?
Sorry. No, sorry. And I don't have any emails either, so.
Okay, thank you very much. Presentations and reports, Mr. Eggett.
Thank you. I'm gonna try to go through everything I talked about in the previous session quickly. Obviously, we have a request for a rezone to R4, which potentially lead to some kind of a submittal for an R4 type of multifamily project request in the near future. So that's something to think about. Further up the street in the Green Hill Apartments complex, they're looking at doing an addition of another multifamily building in there. So that will probably be forthcoming, another site plan amendment, a little different than the ones we saw the last kind of go around a couple of years ago. This will be a little bit different. Starting up that process with the applicant this week, having a pre-application meeting. The Starbucks building continues to move forward with Starbucks contractors working on the inside now that the exterior is all finished and the site's developed. I can't remember their name, furniture store, Scandinavian Designs, continues to move forward a little slow, but they're moving forward with their improvements. The H&B building there next to Buffalo Wild Wings is continuing out of the ground, and we should probably see it going up right here shortly with all the ground improvements being completed. The building, Riverdale Business Park Phase 2 next to the Bravo Arts Academy is also getting ready to come up out of the ground now that all the improvements on site are done in the ground. Falcon Hill continues to move forward with additional buildings. The first main building is pretty much completed, and they'll be moving forward on another building that is outside of city approval because it's a state entity, but it is in our city limits, so it is part of our community. And then 5600 South interchange public comment period officially ended this last week, and the Falcon Hill team had a few concerns about that and its operations, so that will be potentially revised, but they are looking with this being done, then how to fund it. So I'll keep you updated on that front. And I think, and the last thing is Mr. Hanson will probably be bringing forth a site plan, a submittal / phase 2 subdivision plan sometime in maybe early September to very early October, so that month time frame. I'll anticipate that coming. And I believe with that, that's everything I communicated in the last meeting and everything that I have for you.
Mr. Eggett, consent items. Consideration of meeting minutes from July 14th, 2020. Do any commissioners have any changes? If not, a motion is in order.
I move we approve the consent items.
We have a second? Was that you, Blair? Is your mic off, Blair?
Yeah, I was the second.
Okay, all in favor? With a thumbs up, I guess? Because we all can't speak at the same time? Okay. Action items, public hearing to receive and consider comments regarding a rezone request for properties located approximately 4100 South Pacific Avenue, Riverdale, Utah, a zoning change from residential planned commercial CP3 to multifamily residential R4 requested by Riverdale North LLC and AWA Engineering Group. We need a motion to open the public hearing.
I move that we open the public hearing.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Eggett.
Well, with the public hearing now open, Rob, do you want to turn over to members of the public to speak and then I can introduce it, or?
Yes, if there's any members of the public that would like to speak about the public hearing, now's the time. If not, then Mr. Eggett.
And you probably want to, if there are no public comment, close the public comment and then I can address it.
All right.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay. All in favor to close the public hearing? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Public hearing's closed. Mr. Eggett.
Perfect. Now I'll dig into it. So the request tonight is by Riverdale Center North LLC and AWA Engineering Group. Jake Tate submitted it. He's on. You can see he's joined us tonight, and there's a few other representatives from Riverdale Center North LLC Group. The rezone request is for approximately 4100 South Pacific Avenue from regional plan commercial CP3 to multiple family residential R4 zoning for the future possibility of multiple family residential development project in the future. That being said, just to give you a quick characteristic of a CP3 zoning, CP3 is a planned commercial area wherein you have to have a development agreement approval with the city council as far as what kind of uses could go in there. But it would be typical C3 uses. It's just the city council has some discretion through development agreement on what those uses would be. So that's what it currently is designated as. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that as then you look at what's being requested for it to change to. That being said, the neighboring properties around this are zoned with C3 zoning, M1 zoning, and RCP zoning, which is that retail commercial plan overlay zone, which ironically is on our next public hearing and consideration of rezone request. The property is approximately 2.59 acres of land. We have completed all requirements of state code to allow for public commentary, and the public hearing has been noticed and scheduled for the site as required by state code in meeting those standards and requirements. We provided the checklist and all of the supporting documentation in your packet reflecting that. So if you have any questions about that, let me know. I won't go over each of those, but you do have that in your packet. The petitioner's property is currently listed in the county records on the ownership of Riverdale Center North LLC. And the property has been basically not utilized. It's just sat kind of as a open field, sometimes a little bit of a weed nuisance by the previous owner that had to be taken care of every once in a while, with the intent historically of some kind of a complementary commercial use that would be part of the commercial center by the previous owner. Obviously that never happened, and here we are today with it still sitting vacant. The general plan for this area is currently set as planned commercial high. Proposed rezone request and project concept could be of benefit in strengthening established commercial areas, potentially supporting new commercial uses within this land use designation area. Further, just for the record and for your awareness, in our general plan under Area 9, which is where this area is located, there is a statement in the general plan which reads, kind of paraphrasing, the high traffic through the area and the addition of traffic signal at 550 West have accommodated new retail destination commercial growth in this area. This area is also part of the 550 West RDA and the Riverdale Road RDA. A small portion of the 550 West RDA area may accommodate new opportunities for additional housing development in the future of this RDA area. Additionally, other housing development opportunities may be available along the northwest end of 300 West, just south of the Newgate Mall parking lot. So this area isn't exactly where we identified in our general plan there being a need for potential additional housing opportunities, but it's about a quarter of a mile to the south of where we thought it might be. So it's really close proximity to what our general plan ironically calls out as a potential housing opportunity in this area. So take that into account as you look at the general plan guidance, which is typically what we look for when we evaluate rezone requests such as this. And then obviously take into account some of the comments made by the applicant relative to how this might be a benefit to the existing commercial development and real estate around this site. The applicant has stated in their explanation, has said that if they have more bodies on site, then that could be a boost to the existing commercial retail that otherwise might struggle going forward in the marketplace with the decision making of the typical consumer changing. This puts a residential populace right on site next to that, and hopefully then secures that commercial real estate and drives it to be more productive for that area, and obviously to benefit Riverdale City as well as the property owners and users of this property. That being said, I've provided with you or for you, following the executive summary, a zoning map layout explaining the zoning and the request, the application of the applicant follows thereafter. Their 3.5 page explanation of request follows that with multiple bullet points as to why that they feel this complies with the standards established by the city for this type of request. And then you can see the county records of the location, the legal description, the payment for the application review, and then the checklist for the public hearing, and then the supporting documents thereafter, evidencing that we have met all public hearing requirements of the state. With that, I would defer back. Oh, and I will note too, I did not receive any public commentary going into this meeting from anybody, and the sign was posted on the property as required and visible to the public. So we did not receive any public commentary, and I would defer back to the Planning Commission for further discussion and deliberation of questions of me or Mr. Tate or the other applicants who are online. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eggett. Discussion. Do any commissioners have any questions, comments, concerns for Mr. Eggett or Mr. Tate?
I do. This is for Mr. Tate. That area you're putting in these two properties, or you're proposing to, it's pretty close to the railroad tracks. Is there any extra measurement or measures you're taking to try and mitigate the noise from the trains? And, you know, because my concern about it is if that's real noisy for people living in those apartments, keeping tenants in there might be an issue. So I was just curious whether you were looking at anything extra that you would be doing to try and keep the noise down, or if it's just going to be standard. And also, do you guys have any concerns about the homeless? Because that homeless shelter's a couple miles north of there, and I know not all of them stay at the homeless shelter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jones, for your question. So as far as the site plan and the layout that we haven't really necessarily dug too deep into the weeds, and obviously if there's an opportunity, we are proposing where the property abuts commercial to installing a block wall or a post and panel type fence. As far as its proximity to the railroad tracks, I'm not sure if that works with the layout that we have. Obviously, that layout will come to you in the future when we move forward, but it's definitely something that we'll take into consideration because, yes, we do want this to be a successful development. We're not just looking to fill a space, so to speak, but we definitely think that there's a great opportunity here for affordable housing and to put a product that also is very high quality at the same time. And rolling into your questions about the homeless concerns, I don't know that we have any specific concerns more than any other location. I think as this project fills and you get an active group of tenants, I think they tend to want to kind of police their own area. And with the establishment of a homeowners association, I think there'll be quite a bit of community watch that takes place inside the development itself. But as far as our concerns of it being within a few miles proximity of a homeless shelter, we're not necessarily too concerned at this point. Obviously, we're counting on the residents that move into this location to kind of keep an eye out and make sure that they're watching for any problems that might arise and to utilize the city facilities if something does happen. But I think we're not concerned at this point.
Is going to be owner-occupied units or are they rentals?
I am not sure at this point, actually. I think we're open to all options as we move forward. I think as the design comes together, that will kind of clarify whether they'll be 100% rental or 100% sale, owner occupied, we're not sure. It may be a combination of both. It kind of just depends on how the market is at the time when these are ready to go out for lease or for sale.
I just wanted to say, overall, I like the idea of these units being close to the mall and the surrounding businesses to increase the traffic to those businesses. So I think that's a plus.
Thank you.
Mr. Tate, I have a question. I know that one of the properties has a large retention area on it for runoff water from the surrounding businesses. How is that going to affect that piece of property as far as what you might be able to put on it?
Yeah, so in the preliminary designs that we've done, we have incorporated a large detention pond. Our intention is not to push that anywhere else. During the dry times, it'll act as kind of a landscaped area for the residents, but we will continue to maintain the required detention that it currently holds, and then any additional detention will be put underground under the parking areas that may be produced by the new development. And so the intention is to kind of develop around it and create, I wouldn't say, maybe a park. It's kind of a large open landscaped area, and so I can see it actually being an amenity for the residents during the dry times. Obviously, there will be signs. We'll have to let them know that it is a detention pond and that there could be water there during rainy times. But yeah, our intention is to keep that function. We're not pushing that off on anyone else. We'll make sure that whatever's required is there, and whatever is developed because of the housing development will also be contained.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. I also would like to mention that I think this could be a positive for our area in that part of the city.
Thank you.
Any additional questions, comments, or concerns from Mr. Tate? If not, a motion is in order.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve to the City Council with a favorable recommendation on the rezone request for the properties located at approximately 4100 South Pacific Avenue and 4113 South Pacific Avenue.
Hang on, Blair, we can't do 4113 yet. We have to have a separate public hearing because it has a different zoning designation change.
All right.
It's 4100.
All right. I would like to make a motion that we send with a favorable recommendation to the City Council for the rezone request for the property at 4100 South Pacific Avenue.
A second.
Okay, hey Shaylee, can you pull the commissioners for me?
Commissioner Jones? Sorry, you can just do a thumbs up, sorry. Perfect.
Aye.
Commissioner Nye? Commissioner DeMar? Commissioner Herman? And Commissioner Wingfield.
Thank you, Shaylee. Action item number 2, public hearing to receive and consider comments regarding consideration to forward recommendation to the City Council regarding a rezone request for property located approximately 4113 South Pacific Avenue, Riverdale, Utah. A zoning change from retail commercial park overlay, RCP, to multifamily residential R4 requested by Riverdale LLC and AWA Engineering Group. I'd like to make motion is in order to open the public hearing.
I move that we open the public hearing.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor, thumbs up. Okay, is there any public comment for the public hearing? Then a motion is in order to close the public hearing.
I move that we close the public hearing.
I'll
Do you have a
second.
second? Okay. All in favor? Okay. Mr. Eggett.
Thank you. This is a lot similar to what I reviewed before, so I'll just hit the highlights of what's different for this one, and then if you'll just insert everything I talked about in the last one, we can, I guess, apply that to the knowledge of what we talked about here. Again, the same applicant, Riverdale Center North LLC and AWA Engineering Group. Again, Jake Tate is representing, as well as representatives from Riverdale Center North are on the call with us this evening, or the group discussion this evening. Like you said, the property is located approximately 4113 South Pacific Avenue. It's the property to the west of Old Navy Michael's building and to the north of Lowe's. There's actually an existing home that's being used as a chiropractic office on that property currently, and then the detention basin adjacent to it. The desire for this property is for it to be part of future development for multiple family residential development project on this property. The RCP, or Retail Commercial Park Overlay Zoning, is it's a special use district in our code in Title 10, Chapter 13. I think it's C or D, I can't remember which letter, maybe even E. Anyway, it links the zoning standards of a commercial zone to a development agreement. While we were in the interim between work session this meeting, I looked up that development agreement. It was called Riverdale Center 2, and it was established in 1999. I pulled it up. And the date actually was 23rd of November 1999 is when it was approved. It was agreed for a period of 10 years, at which point it would expire. And now I give you that so you have some context of what that designation stands for or stood for. It had standards relative to the design criteria, signage, landscaping. There was a design review committee, etc. as part of that center when it developed. Now that zoning is still applicable to all the existing uses in place. However, with this rezone request, those uses obviously would no longer apply to the portion that is rezoned should it be successfully rezoned by the city. It kind of becomes its own, if you will, removal by zoning from the establishment of that. And again, that agreement is expired, but it does guide the zoning regulations relative to that area, even though the agreement is expired. It's kind of unique how the city has established codes tied to development agreements that then maintain the standards of development within that area. So this rezone has a little bit of a different request in what it does relative to an existing development agreement and how that development agreement drives the zoning. So that gives you some of the background context of that. The area where this is at, the neighboring properties are zoned M1 and CP3 zoning. There's the Union Pacific Rail Yards to the west, and then there's other RCP zoning, obviously adjacent and around the site. The property is approximately 2.715 acres of land, and all of the public hearing requirements for noticing and scheduling and sign placement have all been completed as required by state code for this. The property ownership, again, is showing under the ownership of Riverdale Center North LLC in the county records. The property is currently being utilized as a regional detention basin, the chiropractor's office, and an adjacent undeveloped existing future building pad right to the south of the chiropractor's office that just never was developed by the previous owners, but it could have been a complementary commercial use in the area. Again, the same general plan commentary is in place that I gave on the previous item, so just substitute what I said on that one as well here. You'll see all the supporting documentation, and then the applicant's application and supporting document from the applicant. The one thing I will note that I have received on this one, I did receive at least a public inquiry from his name was Todd, I forget his last name. He is the owner of the chiropractor's office at the location there, right as it bends on Pacific Avenue, meets 300 and then continues on Pacific Avenue. He was just inquiring on what was going on, what was being looked at, and what his future looked like. During the phone conversation, I obviously directed him to contact the landlord, the new landlord, and inquire about what his future might be there. He asked about timeframes. I said I wasn't sure, that he would probably need to talk to the new owners and inquire about what they might think happened with the property. So my advice there might be for Mr. Tate and the owners to contact Todd, the chiropractor there. I forget his last name. I once knew it, but I forgot it. I apologize. But contact him and talk to him about what his future might look like, because he was really nice. He didn't seem to have issue. He just wants to know what his options will be so he can plan accordingly if and when that site is removed. That being said, that's the only public commentary I received on the site. And I would defer to Planning Commission and appreciate your time. Feel free to ask me any questions or the applicants and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eggett. Discussion. Do any commissioners have any questions, comments, or concerns for Mr. Tate or Mr. Eggett? If not, a motion is in order.
I'd like to make a motion that we forward to the city council with a favorable recommendation on the rezone request for the property at approximately 4113 South Pacific Avenue.
I second.
Will you clarify that as part of that rezone, just the rezoning designation from what to what, so it's clear on the record?
Yeah. Can I just state the rezone now? Or do I have to do the whole motion over?
No, just add that from zoning designation to the.
Okay, from a CP3 to a R4.
RCP to R4, Blair.
Okay, RCP to a R4.
Perfect. Thank you.
Shaylee, will you pull the commissioners, please?
Okay, Commissioner Knight, Commissioner DeMar,
Aye.
Commissioner Herman, Commissioner Wingfield, and Commissioner Jones.
Shaylee? They're both on their way to the city council. Congratulations. Discretionary items. Do any commissioners have any discretionary items they'd like to discuss? Then a motion is in order to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Do you have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. See you guys in a couple weeks.
Thank you.